Ceberano. Welcome to Booktopia.
I like the control you wield amongst your men at Booktopia.
It's
really
very,
quite impressive.
very short-lived, believe me. Why write this book now? It's not as if you're at the end of your career, you're in your prime. Why write this book now?
Number of reasons, I suppose. I felt I had a lot of stories to tell, and in a sense I wanted to put some order into what had become disorderly as far as I was concerned. You know, when other people are writing who you are and how they see the events of your life passing, it's an indefensible condition if they label you a certain way or have described your motivation and or worse yet, have come to the conclusion that you're everyone's beloved Kate and you're much to be ignored, and let's just kind of wait till she sort of goes into that kind of other part of her life where she'll do something else.
Right. And
we will have had our moment in the sun applauding her, and it was all lovely, and you know, I just didn't want that to be the record of my life. And I'm actually a woman whose life is in art, who doesn't feel yet fully fulfilled as to what I had planned to get out of my life in art.
Yeah, I think that comes through quite strongly in the book, and we might come back to that. What was the hardest part of the book for you to write? Because there's quite a lot of very powerful revelation in this book about your career, about family, about key relationships creatively and personally. So what was the real bit where you had to kind of screw your courage to the sticking point and be brave?
There were stories to be told about my mum, and it was kind of like you can't tell the half-truth, you sort of have to tell all. So once we went there, and I took a deep breath, and I asked my mum and I asked my family, and we kind of went there, my husband. It was just okay, it's all or nothing kind of proposition.
Yeah, you can't be half pregnant, can you?
You cannot be half pregnant. That's
so,
not just a good statement. Look at that.
What do you think is the thing in this book that people will be most surprised to discover about you?
I think there are a lot of surprises in there, actually. I think that the voice is very secure, and it's meaning I'm offering the wounds as well as the triumphs, and I don't think people often say, you're so happy and you seem so complete, and you know, and I'm not going to say that I'm not an optimistic person by nature, as I am. I was born without fear. My family, I was raised without fear. I had no idea that there was evil in the world, you know, and always seeing a cup half full. So that's true, but in life's experiences, it's just not realistic to imagine that you haven't had to overcome some significant stories and recover and then write your own. And I think a lot of people, a lot of readers will find a lot of themselves in the book, and they'll find a lot of their own dreams and their own you know, potentials that they haven't yet realised. And I think that could be reassuring. I really wanted it to be a didactic thing. I wanted them to learn and read something from the stories.
Because I was wondering, you know, obviously in the process of writing the book, you've had to look back on your career, on its highs and its lows. What you would do differently now in your career? You've had lots of opportunities, and some things didn't turn out the way you wanted them to, but then other things came along. So what would you do differently?
I just wish that when I was younger, I didn't work so hard to be liked as much. It just seemed that, you know, if I was to glance back at the younger me, and which, you know, obviously you have to do when you're writing a memoir, and you've only got one of two choices. You can look at yourself as you wished you were, or you could look at yourself and sort of take this kind of very pragmatic, oh well, you know, I'm faultless because really I only had what I had to work with as my experience, so how could I have done anything wrong, you know? But instead I look at her and I look at the fact that I was overcompensating, and my estimation of effort was way off. I was putting way too much investment in things that weren't always going to give a very valuable pay, and investing in wrong people at times, hoping that the pay would be security and love and sort of this sort of unconditional support. But those things, they're not things that just come because you wish they could come. You have to actually create them and build them yourself, and that's what I've discovered in the many, many years that's passed now, that that investment has to be really wisely made.
What about comparison? Because one of the things that you're very candid about in the book, in a very disarming way, is you admit to the fact that you compared yourself with other pop artists of your time. So Kylie, obviously, a little bit younger than you, but also a Melbourne girl, has had this stratospheric career, and also Tina Arena. And I sometimes think that comparison is actually really unhelpful.
Oh, it is. It's really dangerous, actually, but it's one that we can't resist doing, because we're trying to compare our experience and see, you know, which one has the more which one has more value, really. But at the end of the day, you know, you hit your 40s and you realise none of that was very important to begin with, because you're always going to choose what you end up choosing. The question on comparing oneself, it brings to the fore what I think is true of life itself, is that there's always a dichotomy. And that in one person alone, if you split you into two, you'd be the one seeking to be liked and admired, be praised for all your commercial work, you know, have the financial stability, all of the magazines putting you on every cover and all of that. But then the other dichotomy to me, in the person I am, is that I actually also I was trained by artisans, raised by beatniks, you know, in a pop art band that gave me art, culture and modern art and design. I was obliged to follow truth and good taste. All of those things, they're uncompromising. You cannot go in, it's like being half pregnant again. You can't unsee or unknow what the world of culture has to offer. And to me, it was the ne plus ultra in bad taste to pretend I didn't see or know that, and then let someone else maybe design that for me.
You made some interesting choices in terms of your mother being your manager, and then your husband being your manager. And a lot of people would probably ask the question, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know. I know. I think it's one of those things that had to do with security at the end of the day.
Because there was no one else you thought you could trust.
Well, there's that, yeah. And how do you judge a person? Well, I mean, by what measure? In the end, you know, at certain times in my life, as I'm sure many CEOs will appreciate, it almost feels like you're paying to have friends. And do you wonder that if, you know, like a public servant, if after 6 o'clock, when they've all gone home and they're having their fabulous time being normal people, if they consider the fact that maybe it's at that time you need them most. And so it becomes, in the end, a 24/7 proposition in this field. And that the people you're with, it just so happened my mum was very loyal and devoted to arts and has been a patron of the arts. And that she would understand that if I would call at midnight and I needed her, that's not on the payroll. I mean, how do you ever ask someone to do that? It's an impossible thing to ask. And I often wish I'd never asked it of her as well, because it put her under great stress.
During the lean years, you know, you had a couple of records that should have done really well and didn't, and there was all the kind of confusion and commentary in the press about, oh, she's confusing the market by switching from pop to jazz and back again, and she can't decide what she wants to be, and all of that stuff. What is the core of your resilience? Because you have this extraordinary ability to keep your optimism, keep your faith, stay on your path. And I want to know what you think that comes from. You're a survivor.
Well, Scientology, as it's written in the book, which I'm really happy about, is just offering up people an answer to a question that comes up. I'm going to hope that that's going to be enough from this day forward, because it's not in the world of art, it's not as common to go and ask another person about their beliefs and how it shaped their music or art. Like, you'd never walk through the gallery and go, I'm not quite certain yet, Mike, the jury's out on whether I like this artist. What is he again? Is he Jew? Is he Christian? I'm not sure. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, no, I don't like that. It's just, you'd never do it, you know, and it's just unbelievable to me that people do it. And that, you know, in the last resounding thing when I'm on a record promotion thing, when I'm clearly a musician, is that the person's wanting to, you know, is wanting to make their decision about my piece of work or art based on if they think that's a cool thing or not, you know. So I think I got to cover it in the book as it is for me and what it means for me. And the one thing I can say, and I think this is true for any artist, that unless you organise yourself, and it's not true of anything in life actually, you get nothing done. And so the only thing I think in Scientology which has been the most powerful thing for me is to have a sense of order to things. And in the philosophy there is there's a wonderful order with which one can go about observing natural things in life and seeing if they can't put more order or improvement into those things. It's really not that fussy, but I think that it does fly in the face of a lot of people who would make a lot of money out of disorder.
Is there one song that you think of as being a song that says more about you than any other and tells us more about who you are, that is the kind of Kate Ceberano anthem, if you like?
You know, an artist is always self-evangelizing. You're constantly writing the same song and it's always about yourself. I mean, that is true of every artist I know. You could be Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, you know, Leonard Cohen. It's always a subjective universe, the story, and courage, whether it's courage or brave. It's saying, I live in an imperfect world, I am imperfect. There are so many questions and so many unresolved passions and unrequited passions that I still have as an artist, and I'm only going to find them by continuing to do what I'm doing. And even though the lyric, it won't have any of that in it, doesn't say that, but what it's saying is, let me do this, let me get on with it, and at the same time absolve me of all of what I'm doing wrong in order for me to get to where I need to do right. That's pretty much my theory.
I think you're absolved.
Well, thank you so much.
Kate Ceberano, thank you very much.
Wash me and clean me down. I've seen the light.